Hi, third grade mathematicians. It's Mrs. Moore here. Today, we will be learning our fifth area and perimeter lesson. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to determine the area and perimeter of rectangles within word problems. Boys and girls, if you don't already have supplies to participate with me in this lesson, please pause the video and get out a pencil and scratch paper so that you can determine the area and perimeters of rectangles along with me. Boys and girls, as always, we're going to begin by reviewing the wonderful information we learned during the first 4 lessons. So we know that area is the total amount of space covered by a shape. And area is measured in square units, so we're really trying to determine the number of square units inside a shape. We know that area is found by multiplying the length times the width of a rectangle, and that tells us the total amount of space covered by an object. You'll notice that the inside of this rectangle is shaded yellow. That's because the yellow part is this rectangle's area. It's the total amount of space covered by the entire rectangle. We know that perimeter is different. Perimeter only accounts for the total distance around the outside of a shape. We know that perimeter is found by carefully adding each side length together, and that tells us the total length of all of the side lengths combined. Think of the yellow highlighted outside as a string. Think of wrapping a string around the outside edges of this rectangle. When you unwrap the string, the total length of the string is the perimeter of the entire shape. It's the total distance around the shape. Fantastic. So boys and girls, over the past 4 lessons, you have become very proficient determining the area and perimeters of rectangles. You know to determine the total amount of space covered, or the area of the inside of a shape, you multiply the length times the width. When determining the perimeter of the shape, though, you do something different because the perimeter is just the total of all of the side lengths put together. So you very carefully add each of the side lengths to determine the total distance of all of the side lengths put together. Would you please pause the video? And when you pause the video, your task is to determine both the area and the perimeter of this rectangle. You'll notice that this rectangle has the same dimension. Would you please determine the area and the perimeter of these rectangles and tell me, how was finding the area and the perimeter of these rectangles different? Were you able to do this? I knew you could. Well, you know to find area, what do? You multiply the length times the width. So you would multiply 4 inches by 3 inches. What is 4 times 3? You're right, it is 12. But we have to say 12 square inches so that we're able to remember that area is always measured in square units. And for this particular problem, my units are inches. And so 12 square inches would fit inside this rectangle. Perimeter, we do a little bit differently. We carefully add each of the side lengths. So I would have added for my equation what? Yes, 4 plus 4 plus 3 plus 3. What is the perimeter of this shape? What is the total of all of the side lengths added together? You're exactly right. 4 plus 4 inches is 8 inches, plus 3 more inches is what? 11 inches, plus 3 more is 14. We don't measure perimeter in square units since it's just the distance around the outside. So I would just say 14 inches because it's just referring to a length. Fantastic. Okay, third graders, I have a challenge for you. You also know so much about geometry from our previous unit. So would you please pause this video and determine the missing side lengths of these parallelograms? Please draw these rectangles on your paper and please label each of the side lengths using what you know about geometry. Fantastic. You know that an attribute of all rectangles is that it has opposite sides that are equal length. So I hope you were able to draw that if this side was 7 meters, its opposite parallel side would also be 7 meters. If this side length were 2 meters, what would this side length be? Yes, 2 meters. And since this is a square, you know all of the side lengths are equal. What are the side lengths of each side? You're right, 6 centimeters. This is going to be really helpful because to determine the perimeter of a shape, you need to be able to add all of its side lengths. So you need to know how to determine missing side lengths based on what you know about rectangles. Okay, my wonderful third grade friends. Today we're going to talk a lot about area and perimeter real life scenarios. And then you're going to determine the area and perimeter of rectangular objects in our real lives today. So, in order to do this, I want you to really understand the differences between perimeter and area. So we know that there are key words that help us understand perimeter problems and area problems. Some of these key words, they share, like long or length, wide or width, and different units. But some of their keywords are very specific just to perimeter or just to area. For example, perimeter keywords are around, fencing, frame, trim, border, outside, distance around, or edge. All of these words, they tell me that I'm only referring to the outside edge of a shape or the perimeter to measure the distance around. Area keywords are different because I know area problems refer to the space covered by a shape. So area keywords are cover, square units, total area, surface or surface area, or inside. So analyze the keywords that help us determine area and perimeter. Pause the video and determine which keywords are common and why do you think they might be common? Which keywords were common? Yes, length, width, and units. Why do you think they're common? You're right, because the length and the width, or side lengths of a rectangle, are needed or required when finding both area and perimeter. These words are used often in area and perimeter problems. But it's very important that you read through the whole problem to determine whether or not you're determining the perimeter or the distance around the shape or the area, the amount of space within the entire shape. So you'll notice that you need to determine side lengths to solve both area and perimeter. But you need to read very carefully to determine whether or not you're solving area or perimeter word problems. We're going to sort some scenarios, and this is going to be very important because for tomorrow's lesson, you're going to decide whether or not word problems are area or perimeter problems. Today, we're going to solve for both the area and perimeter, but I want you to get very comfortable with how they're different so you can be very successful as we move through this unit. Okay, I'll sort 2 and then you'll sort 2. So we're going to decide, is this scenario a perimeter scenario, which is referring to just the distance around a shape, or an area scenario, which is referring to the total space covered by a shape? So yards of fence around a yard. Okay, so Mrs. Moore sees that it says around a yard. I know that that's not referring to the total amount of space the yard is covering. It's only referring to the space right around the edge of a yard. So I know it's referring to the fence that goes around the yard. I also know quite a bit about fences. Well, fences are used around the outside of a yard to fence in your yard. So I know right away that a fence just goes on the outside of a space. So I know it's a perimeter problem. Okay, I'm going to do one more with you. The total square inches of the top of a desk. I know at school we have rectangular desks. And I know if I'm trying to find the total square inches of the top of a desk, I'm trying to figure out the total space covered by the top of the desk. Not just the outside of the desk, the total square inches. So is this an area or perimeter problem? Exactly, it is an area problem because you're referring to the total area of the desk, the total space covered by the top of the desk, not just the edges of the desk. Would you guys pause the video and read the last 2 scenarios carefully and determine if they are area scenarios or perimeter? Where did you put our first scenario? Square feet of tile needed to cover the kitchen. You're right. It is an area problem because it's asking for the total amount of tile you would need to cover the kitchen. It didn't just say the outside edges of the kitchen or the perimeter of the kitchen. It asked for the amount of tile you would need to cover the entire kitchen. It also said square feet of tile. Well, I know area is always measured in square feet. What about the last scenario, the distance around the outside of a pool? Yes, that is a perimeter problem because it says distance around the outside of a pool. It's not asking for the total space taken up by the pool. It's only asking for the distance around the perimeter of the pool or the outside. Okay, I'm going to show you what your assignment's going to look like today. You need to have out a piece of paper and a pencil because you're going to solve this with me. We are going to read some area and perimeter scenarios, and you're going to find both the area and the perimeters of the rectangles that we read about. Let's read together. The gym floor at UPP is 7 yards wide and 8 yards long. What is the area and perimeter of the gym floor at UPP? So you'll notice that to find the area and the perimeter, I need to know the side lengths. Would you please draw this rectangle on your paper and label all 4 side lengths? Thanks for doing that with me. Then we're going to find the area of the gym floor at UPP. What would your equation be to find the area? Yes, you would multiply the length, the longer side, times the width, the shorter side. So my equation would be 8 yards times 7 yards, or 7 yards times 8 yards. Write it down. So what is the area of the gym floor at UPP? What is 7 times 8? What is the total area? Solve it using a strategy and write it down on your paper. Yes, 8 yards times 7 yards is 56 square yards. You know to find the area or the space covered by the gym floor, the total amount of space in the gym, we multiply the length times the width. Fantastic. Determining perimeter is a little bit different. To determine perimeter, we have to determine the total distance around the gym floor at UPP. So the total distance around just the edges of the gym floor at UPP. So I know I have to add each of the side lengths. Pause the video and write down your equation. Yes, you would add 8 plus 8 plus 7 plus 7 to carefully add all of the side lengths together to determine the total distance around. Please write down your equation and use what you learned about adding multiple addends to solve it. Yes, you knew 8 plus 8 was 16 and 7 plus 7 was 14. So you very carefully added 16 plus 14. Well, you know 6 plus 4 is a perfect 10. So you know that the total perimeter, the total distance of all of the side lengths put together, is 30 yards. Fantastic. Who remembered what they learned during our multiple addends lesson to do that very, very carefully? Awesome work, boys and girls. Okay, let's do another one together. This is about my friend Josie. Let's read it together, and then you guys are going to solve this on your scratch paper right along with me. Miss Josie is playing on her backyard patio and wants to measure the area and perimeter of her patio. So Josie wants to figure out how much space is covered by her patio and the total distance around her patio. She wants to figure out both. So this picture represents her patio. If her patio is a square and one side is 10 feet long, what is the area and perimeter of Josie's patio? Boys and girls, please draw that square on your scratch paper and carefully label each side length. Hint, if you know one of the side lengths of a square, you know all of the remaining side lengths. Fantastic. Yes, each side length is equal to 10 feet because it's a square. And an attribute of a square is that it has 4 equal side lengths. What would my equation be to determine the area of the square? Yes, it would be 10 times 10, which is a benchmark that equals what? What is 10 feet times 10 feet? Yes, 100 square feet. So the total space covered by Josie's square patio is 100 square feet. We just figured out the total amount of space on the inside of Josie's patio. Now let's determine the perimeter. Write your equation, please. Yes, you would have to add 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10 feet, and that will tell you the total distance around. Yes, so we determine the total perimeter by adding each side length together, and that tells us the total distance around Josie's patio. Okay, would you please pause the video and determine the area of this scenario? Let's read it together first. Jaden is mailing a picture to his grandma and wants to make it large enough to hang on her wall with a beautiful floral border. If his card is 9 inches long and 8 inches wide, what is the area and perimeter of Jaden's card? So you know just with 2 side lengths, you can determine both the area and perimeter. Please start by drawing Jaden's card on your paper and labeling each side length. Fantastic. Now, would you please write the equation that you're going to use to determine the area of his card, the total space covered by Jaden's card? Yes, your equation would be 9 inches times 8 inches. What is the total area of Jaden's card? Yep, 72 square inches. Would you remember what you know about adding multiple addends to carefully add each side length to determine the perimeter? Yes, you added 9 plus 8 plus 9 plus 8, which you determined was 34 inches. I'm going to have you pause on this page and read the problem with me, and then determine both the area and the perimeter of the rectangular object in this word problem. Victoria has a cement walkway in her backyard. Her walkway is 3 feet wide and 9 feet long. What is the area of her walkway? And what is the perimeter of Victoria's walkway? Pause the video and determine the area and perimeter of her walkway. We'll check together as soon as you're done. Yes, to determine the area, you multiplied 9 feet times 3 feet, which you determined was 27 square feet. To determine the perimeter, you carefully added 9 plus 3 plus 9 plus 3, because it's the total distance around the shape. So you were able to determine that that was 24 square feet. Here is your assignment for today. We are providing you with different scenarios, and then you get the opportunity to answer the questions to determine the area and perimeter. It says Mrs. Hutchins is building a very small jewelry box. She knows that the jewelry box will need to be 12 centimeters long and 5 centimeters wide. What will the area and perimeter of her jewelry box be? To find the area, I need to multiply 12 times 5, length times width. So I know 12 times 5, well, 10 times 5 is 50. 11 times 5 is 55, so 12 times 5 is just one more group of 5, so it's 60 square centimeters. To do the perimeter, I need to add 12 plus 12 plus 5 plus 5. Well, I know 12 plus 12 is 24, and 5 plus 5 is 10. 24 plus 10 is 34. So the total distance around is 34. You guys will use scratch paper to carefully solve the remaining problems. Take your time, do your best, and turn in your work to your teacher once you've checked it at least 2 times. Thank you for your fantastic listening today.